Okay, now I just want to make a short video about absolute value. So just remember that absolute value, if we do absolute value of any number, what it does is it makes it positive. So if it's a negative number, it'll return the corresponding positive number, and if it's a positive number, then it doesn't really change anything. Right? And I think if we were to draw a graph of this function, it looks something like this. So for instance, if we were to plot the point negative 4, 4, right, that would come up here on our graph. So this is a graph of y equals absolute value of x. And the reason I want to talk about this is because we can also write this in our functional notation by saying, well, what is the absolute value of a number? Well, we have sort of two cases. One if that number is positive, and one if that number is negative. So if you think about it, if the number is positive, it doesn't do anything. So the absolute value of x is the same as x, and the absolute value of x is going to be the opposite of x if x is less than 0. So this is a definition you'll see in the textbook, and is sort of the one way of defining the absolute value. And what I just want to point out is if we apply it, say, to negative 3, then this formula would say, well, our input is negative, so we're going to use our second formula here. So we should do minus that input, and we're going to get 3 back out of it. Sorry, not 6. I said 3, I meant 3. Right? So this is how absolute value works. And let's do one more example. There's a web work problem that might be related to this. So we have absolute value of x is x or minus x. And this depends on whether x is bigger or smaller than 0. So if we were to do something like, say, the absolute value of 6x minus 11, where x is, let's say, less than negative 3. So we want to simplify this expression, and one thing we could do is we could say, well, I know x is smaller than negative 3, so I can think about this expression 6x minus 11, and I can say, well, if I take a number that's smaller than minus 3, and I multiply it by 6, it's going to get small, probably smaller than negative 18. And then I subtract 11, it's definitely going to be negative. So the point is that this input is definitely negative. So stay after at the end of this video. I'll give a slightly more details about that if you're interested. But I think if you just think about it, and that's the intuition I want to focus on, this is negative. And so since that input to the absolute value is negative, our rule says if we have a negative number, then we should negate the input. So since this is negative, this is going to equal to the negative of 6x minus 11, which is 11 minus 6x. Okay. So I want to emphasize here that this is not something that's always true, but if x is smaller than minus 3, as we saw in this example, then we can simplify the absolute value of 6x minus 11 is going to equal 11 minus 6x. And so that's the end of the video. For those of you who want to stay watching on, let me just do a quick explanation of why if x is smaller than minus 3, then 6x minus 11 is negative. Okay. And let's just see how that would go. So we start with x is less than minus 3. I could multiply both sides by 6. Since we're multiplying by a positive number, that doesn't change the inequality sign. So we have 6x is smaller than minus 18. And then I can subtract 11 from both sides. So in fact, 6x minus 11 is going to be smaller than minus 29, which of course is negative. So this is some ways we can get practice just thinking about functions. Again, the more we think about what's going on, I think the more intuition we'll have. And thanks for watching.